And we're back in the car like we never left. Welcome to the Confessions of a Not So Dangerous Mind podcast. I'd like to thank you all for spending some of your Sunday evening here with me in New York. But once again, we're going to skip past all that promotional jazz and get right to the guts of the episode. This will not be a movie-themed episode or a boxing-themed episode. We are going back to, quote, health, fitness, lifestyle kind of stuff, and to a lesser extent, depending on how you look at these things, mindset. So I started working out seriously, and by that I mean using weights and figuring out how to do exercises such as squats and deadlifts in, as good a form as possible while trying to add weight when possible. Your basic process of progressive resistance. And I joined Bev Francis Powerhouse Gym in Syosset in March of 1993. So now more than 32 years ago. I was just a youngin'. I was still a teen when I joined up at Bev's. And when I got a kind of groove going sometime in the mid-90s, where I figured out how to balance squatting heavy, deadlifting heavy, alternating when I would go heavy or light, using a form of what used to be called periodization. And I made a lot of progress. And really in the first, I don't even know how many years of training regularly at Bev's gym, the worst injury I suffered took place in 1996. And it was not a conventional training injury. I dropped a 45-pound plate on my right big toe. And, that was not pleasant. Let's just say it. I can be honest. That was a very unpleasant experience. That was the first training injury that I ever incurred. In order to find the next time I suffered the sort of injury where I had to even alter my workout, even a little bit, you have to fast forward all the way to November of 2011, where by that point, if you can do the math, I'm 37 going on 38. And I incurred a really bizarre lower lumbar strain. I hurt myself putting on a sock. And that is not good, but what that clearly would suggest is I had a pre-existing situation. That injury was going to take place one way or the other. So I wasn't able to, horror of horrors, I wasn't able to squat that day. I was just able to do cardio and stretching, and chiropractor worked on me. The next injury I suffered was about 4 months after, so it'll go to February of 2012, and I strained my right hip flexor, the cluster of muscles, presumably surrounding the joint, and the kind of pivot muscles. It was like a 3-in-1. I strained all three. Answer's D, all three. And I did that doing high rep deadlifts. I was in a rush. It was early in the morning, and I needed to get home and give my dad a lift to the train. My dear old dad, may he rest in peace, but he needed me to take him to the train, and I wasn't warmed up enough, I don't think. And it's the kind of injury, the strained hip flexor, some of you might know, and injuries of that ilk, where you might not realize how injured you are until you cool down. So in this particular instance, when I finished my workout and as I was walking to the car, I noticed that I had a slight hop, that I was walking with a hop. Something was injured. So I said, all right, well, I tweaked something on my right side. Didn't know exactly what it was. I couldn't tell if it was in the hip region or whether it was lower back, but it was something. It turned out to be a right hip flexor strain. And when I cooled off, when I sat down for like a half hour, I could not get back up. I've fallen and I can't get up. I was able to use my arms to pull myself up, but I could not walk without swinging my right leg in an exaggerated fashion, almost like out of a horror movie, like a Tales from the Crypt kind of thing. That injury healed 100%, which I felt was somewhat miraculous. I got chiropractic and electric stim, ultrasound, and regular conventional chiropractic adjustments, intense massage, and I made a full recovery. With those injuries, though, and the fact that I had a lot of other aches and pains which were creeping up on me even as I was still in my 30s, I made the decision it was time for me to stop training like a lunatic, training like a daredevil, training as if I had unlimited orthopedic capacity, and that I was not really aging. I was the same as I had been at 25 orthopedically. I did not need to take any special steps to protect myself, to protect my joints, tendons, ligaments. No, I did. And I whole cloth adjusted my training. No more 300-pound deadlifts for 30 reps, as much as that was fun to be able to do. No more heavy squats. No more forced reps of bench presses or even forced reps with dumbbell benches or shoulders. No more. It's time to cut back. Keep doing high reps, but cut back on the weight and don't be stupid. Kept saying the same thing. Don't be stupid. Yeah, but you could still pull 400. Yeah, but I might end up in the hospital. Now you're just saying that. Well, maybe I'm just saying that. Maybe I am not just saying that. Meantime, since those adjustments were put into place now about 13 years ago, since I swore off the idea of heavy squats, and I was probably never going to even pull as much as 315 deadlift from the floor again, I did not miss any time either at Bev Francis Powerhouse Gym, where I continued to train until COVID, or Planet Fitness, the clubhouse where I live, or my home gym, either the one in Huntington or now the one at the house in Coram, which is obviously very similar. I have a lot of the same gear that I had at the apartment in Huntington. So I did not miss any days of training, no hospital visits, no doctor visits as a result of an injury incurred in the gym. The irony is, I sit here in my car and I'm telling you a story of a serious, well, somewhat serious injury that I incurred while not in the gym. And this is where it gets tricky to kind of describe, because from a conceptual standpoint, I agree with the idea that being fit, being healthier than, let's say, the average person in your age bracket, and that could apply to anyone, but being fit, being healthy, being stronger per capita than you're supposed to be at your age makes it less likely that you're going to get injured doing normal person stuff that might require a little elbow grease. You know, you're helping a friend move, and, you know, the cliche is that somebody throws their back out while helping someone move furniture. We all have probably heard stories from friends, acquaintances, relatives. Even with all of the adjustments I've made, I am 13 years older than when I finalized I'm never doing this again with the kind of weight that I had been pulling, pushing, etc. Just not going to do it. I don't want to end up in the hospital, needing surgery, whatever the case might be. However, even with, by and large, training light, and light is relative, because you go back to 2019, 2020 era, and I'm using 50-pound dumbbells and I'm getting 40 reps on shoulder presses. So yeah, those are light relative to what my max was, but it was safe. I was being safe, getting 20 reps with 70-pound dumbbells on the dumbbell bench press. It was within my limits. I was not feeling any undue stress on the joints, tendons, ligaments, or muscles. I never felt like something was going to go. Now, in the last couple of years, there are more aches and pains, and have been more aches and pains creeping up. Oddly enough, my back is fine, and I, knock on wood, I have never had any knee problems. Just what you would expect would be knees and back. I have not had any issues, nothing to indicate that those body parts, those major structures, in any kind of jeopardy, but I have continued to be very, very cautious. However, I have an old left tricep injury that I incurred in the late 90s. Didn't miss any time, but it's something that I was always aware of. It didn't heal 100%. I have a problem at the bottom of my left foot. I have an Achilles that did not heal, no pun intended. It did not heal 100%. I injured it playing tennis. And the old tricep injury just meant that I was even as going heavy with certain exercises, I would use my right side a little bit more than I probably should have to compensate for the fact that I was always afraid that I might suffer a severe tendon strain, or heaven forbid, a tricep tendon tear from this injury from when I was in my 20s that didn't keep me out of the gym. It didn't really hurt that much, but it was something I was always wary of and knew that it could kind of come back to bite me if I wasn't careful. Now, in the last year, something else happened while working out, not an injury, but I noticed my right pinky knuckle, and some of you know I've joked about this on social media, my right pinky knuckle is about twice the size it's supposed to be. It's arthritic. It's an arthritic knuckle. It's not a big deal. It doesn't hurt. But I noticed that when I would even do lightweight, let's say bench presses with 50-pound dumbbells for max reps, I can still get 50 on a good day. Or shoulder presses for max reps, let's say try to get 50 reps now with 30-pound dumbbells, something like that. But I was feeling a weird sense that something was short-circuiting. It was channeling through the right pinky knuckle, but it didn't feel like the right pinky knuckle was actually the problem. It felt like there was a nerve issue or there was a tendon problem in my right arm. It seemed as if it was coming from the forearm, but I didn't have any show of strain or tear. There was never any bruising, and when I was just going about my normal day, I didn't feel anything. So if you want to say the phrase warning sign, but I didn't feel anything. There didn't appear to be any kind of an issue. Not that it was in my head, but you say to yourself, bro, you're getting older, and maybe it is the fact that you have this arthritic knuckle and there's more tissue and there's more calcium there than there's supposed to be, and maybe that's why you're getting this short circuit sensation. But with that, I became even more cautious in the last, let's say, 3 months. I dropped the weight even more. Now, I don't like doing that. But if I have a choice, if I could just do 25 and max 30-pound dumbbells for shoulder presses, yeah, the delts aren't going to look as good as they did. I understand, or they're unlikely to. If I went on some kind of, some kind of gear, I could get them to look. I would get them to look better than they ever did, if we're being honest. But you understand what I'm saying. I'm going lighter, and the reality is, not going above 30 pounds for shoulder presses, I didn't get that short circuit sensation. I really didn't get it and hadn't gotten it in a month. So I'm like, okay, I found a formula here where I'm going to go lighter, even though I was already going light. If I could do 40 to 50 reps with a certain dumbbell on bench presses, that's very light. But I went lighter. I didn't go above now 40s for dumbbell bench press. Try to get 60 reps, as fucking stupid as that sounds. But this sensation wasn't happening. But I also noticed that there appeared to be a little bit of tightness at the bottom of the right bicep, but not when I trained arms. I didn't notice anything. I only felt a little bit of tightness that I had never noted in my life of training. It seemed that there was something tight at the bottom of the right bicep, but it never felt like it was going to tear or go. It seemed like, all right, I'm on the right track with this lighter weights. I wish that I could go heavy. Yeah, I wish that I could train as I did when I was in my 20s and into my late 30s. But this is how it is. And I'm not going to be stupid. I'm not going to take any unnecessary risks. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. So many of you also, if you're on friendly terms, if we message, I do driving. I drive on the side, when I'm not podcasting. So about a week and a half ago, I was at the end of a drive where I was I'm like a transporter, not Jason Statham, but I deliver packages. So I'm in the car, and I incur a flat tire, and I had one more series of deliveries to do. I was delivering packages of food, kind of like Stop and Shop. What's it called? Peapod or whatever. It's something like that. So I have 7 packages still to deliver. I have a time limit, and I have a flat tire. Now I have enough time where this delivery won't be late if I am able to get the spare tire out of the trunk. And the car has the accoutrements to change the tire, the jack, the spinner, the whole thing. But I had not taken the tire out of this trunk, I never had any reason to pull the spare tire out of the trunk. So I did not see that there was a little screw to hold the tire in place. It seems pretty flagrantly obvious now, but it didn't land for me. So I attempted to pull the tire out of the trunk. I did not see the thing that I was supposed to twist, and it didn't make sense to me. I'm pulling and pulling and pulling on the tire, and the tire is not moving, and it does not make any sense. And on about the 6th pull to try to get it loose, which is what I thought I was doing, I wasn't doing anything other than what I'm about to tell you. On the 6th pull, I felt something go in my right arm. It was a snapping sensation that I sure as fuck have never felt before. And I immediately thought that I had torn the tendon from the shoulder, that it was going to bruise up and swell up, and I was going to basically need to go to the hospital immediately. That's what I thought was going to happen. That is not what actually did happen. What happened was I did tear something, but I did not tear the tendon fully. In fact, I injured myself right in the area of weakness that I was just discussing with you. It went from the forearm. Something went from the forearm. Right in the area that I noted there was some kind of tension or stiffness or something that was not correct. But the reality is, when we're in the gym, we, at least people like me, there are those of you perhaps who are still daredevils and are not conscious of injury anytime you do any weight-bearing exercise. But when I am in my regular life, I might be worried about getting injured, but I'm worried about normal parameter injuries. I'm worried about if I lift this package incorrectly, I might strain something in my hip, I might strain something in my back. I am not thinking, if I do XYZ incorrectly, I might tear my patella tendon or rip my bicep or fuck up my tricep. That has never been part of the thought process. It's never had to be. So I had a doctor look at me, and the doctor assured me that the tendon was not torn from the shoulder. And that's why I didn't have any bruising. There's certainly swelling in the area of where I felt the yank, which was in the forearm. The only bruising was in the forearm, for whatever that's worth, and it wasn't much. I didn't even see it. Under regular lighting, I couldn't see any bruising, and even now, I still don't see any bruising. So I have continued to do cardio, and I have decent range of motion. If you were to just watch me, this would be boring, but if you were watching me go about my normal day, you wouldn't automatically say, hey, what's wrong with this guy's arm? The only time you would say it is if you watch me move stuff around and say, well, why isn't he using his right arm? It looks like he's, moving it. I don't really, it's still extremely sore is how I would describe it. And I'm not going to do any weight-bearing exercise until all of the swelling, there's a little bit of swelling, as I say, in the crook of the elbow, as you might imagine. I'm not going to do any weight-bearing exercises until it doesn't hurt anymore. And I have a friend, I know a guy who incurred what I think is the exact same injury, and he didn't need surgery. The worst is that the bicep muscle is not going to look the way that it did beforehand. But I'm not somebody who ever competed, was ever even dreaming of going up on stage. At no time do I want to have to go in for surgery. Now, if the muscle had rolled all the way up to the shoulder, and my arm was suddenly engorged in blood, like what happened with Dorian Yates, 31 years ago when he tore his bicep doing barbell rows with a lot of weight. But I'm just glad and grateful that it wasn't worse. It was a bit of a bad break, no pun intended. It was some bad luck, but I feel like this injury was going to happen. It was going to happen anyway. It was not a matter of if. Sorry, I got to get my little contraption here. Say, I used my right hand. I was going to incur an injury at some point. I was going to hurt this. It could have happened doing trap bar deadlifts, which I had continued to do. Also, not heavy. I haven't gone really above 250 on trap bar deadlifts in quite some time. And normally I don't feel any stress as far as with the grip. It's not like, oh my God, it feels like my bicep is going to tear. No, when I do that exercise, Oddly enough, you'd think that that would be the most likely way to hurt yourself, holding the weight in a static fashion, whether you use straps or not. But I never felt the same pressure in that area of the forearm that I've been telling you about where, I injured myself. But I certainly wouldn't have gotten hurt. I wouldn't have gotten hurt the same way. And it is easier to, when you hurt your lower body, when you really hurt your back, when you fuck up your hip, for example, there are things you can't really do. You won't be able to keep up with your cardio if you have a foot injury as well, something like that, a serious foot injury, like if you break your foot. So I am grateful that it wasn't as bad as it could have been. It was not a comprehensive tear. It's just a matter of rest, recovery, rehab, and we'll see what the muscle looks like when I'm able to kind of get back into it. I have seen people with this injury where it doesn't look that much different. See, the thing is, and this is really completely absurd, but I always had a gap in between the bottom of the bicep and the elbow. There are some people, the people with the greatest genetic potential, have very little gap. I always had a gap, so adding another inch or two to the gap, is it really going to make that much difference? I don't know. My left arm was always significantly stronger than my right arm, but when flexed, it almost looked like that bicep had been torn because the muscle never really looked the way that I thought it was supposed to, whereas the right arm always had, and this, again, ridiculous, a little bit of a peak, but it'll be what it'll be. And this is where you get into the mindset where you say to yourself, what do I do now? Because I'm not supposed to get injured doing a normal person thing, such as pull a spare tire that is not that heavy out of the trunk. It happened. And I know that younger me would still be enraged and seething over, I wasn't able to do what I wanted to do in the gym. I haven't been able to, work my arm out now in a week and a half or do any kind of weight bearing exercise. You just have to put one foot in front of the other, take it one day at a time. Try not to get down on yourself, because many of you, if you're workout fanatics such as myself, you have had injuries, and not pushing yourself can sometimes be the trick. Don't force yourself before you're ready. And as I've gotten older and more meditative and with a greater ability to see a bigger picture, I have become more patient. And however long it takes for me to be able to move my right arm in a way like do an exercise, I'm talking about pretending to do dumbbell curls, but with no weight. That's all I'm looking to do right now. And I'm not at that phase. I will not race into or try to move too quickly through a rehab protocol. I'm going to take as much time as it needs, because, as I say, a friend of mine who about a dozen years ago talked about on social media that he tore the distal tendon, and yeah, you could see a difference, but at a certain point, the injury, the surrounding areas come together and heal enough where you're not in pain anymore. It's not sore anymore. It doesn't feel like something else is going to tear if you move wrong. You just have to be patient. And yeah, it sucks, but I had talked to a number of people within the last year how I was a little concerned, more than a little concerned, that there were a number of areas orthopedically that I thought were getting ready to go. And unfortunately, the right arm was one that I had mentioned within the last couple of months. Something's wrong, and that's why I made the adjustments that I made. But all you can do is just try to heal up and get back to doing what you're doing. But it is important to understand that our ages are real and that we're not kids forever. And the 25-year-old daredevil of my distant past doing just crazy shit, getting away with it, but I wasn't really getting away with it. I was putting my older self behind the 8 ball, where things were going to start to go wrong in my late 30s. And obviously, I'm happy that I made the changes that I did back then, because if I had continued on the same path, I for sure would have ended up in the hospital needing emergency surgery for one of any number of things. There's no way to kind of keep the workout Grim Reaper. There's no way to keep it at bay forever. You might be able to leg press 2,000 pounds well into your 40s, maybe even into your 50s, but I wouldn't advise it. You get to a certain point, there is a better way. You have to go lighter, you have to do more reps, and you have to pay attention and at least be aware, because I was very aware of this. but I wasn't aware that I had to unscrew that cap to get that tire out of the trunk. So even someone like me, more meditative, more contemplated, more patient, in that moment, I did not have enough patience. I didn't realize what I was looking at. I had, the spare tire I had in the previous car that I drove. It was in a compartment. There was nothing to unscrew. Like, it's kind of hard to describe. It was a deeper trunk, and it was in an area where it wasn't going anywhere. You had to just pull it up, but there wasn't anything to twist off anyway. You understand what I'm saying? Injuries suck, and serious injuries suck even worse. But they happen, and when they do, we just have to deal with them in the best ways that we know how. We have to give ourselves a pass for, well, I won't be able to do this, and I had certain body goals, or whatever the case might be. No judgment here. But you take a break, you take a breather. In my case, a bit of a sigh of relief that I didn't end up in the hospital with emergency surgery, immediately, and just go from there. And the reality is, I can look down the road. And let's say by the beginning of June, I will probably be able to train my right arm and use my right arm as I have always. Maybe it won't feel the same doing bench presses. There are probably going to be certain movements where even if my arm looks like it's the same size, where I'm not as strong because, from a neuromuscular perspective, it's going to be different. But I look forward to that. I haven't, suffered this injury, and I'm on the road to recovery. And at a certain point in time, people will probably be able to see, looks like this guy ripped his arm up a little bit, but it's all right. It's part of life, and nobody gets out of here alive, and nobody trains balls out for decades and does not have something like this take place. I had just been exceedingly lucky up to this point. So I guess that's the episode. Injury prevention, not really, but something that many of us have to deal with, even those of us who don't work out with weights with intensity. Sometimes shit happens. You might hurt yourself doing the butt blaster. Anything is possible. You just have to always be mindful, be aware of yourself, your surroundings. And next time you get a flat tire, make sure you unscrew that cap on the spare so that you don't even have a chance of injuring yourself in the admittedly ridiculous fashion that I have. Thanks for joining me. This has been episode 383 of the Confessions of a Not So Dangerous Mind podcast. I'd like to thank you all so much for spending some of your Sunday evening here with me in New York. If you check out this episode on the YouTube channel, haven't done so already, please click like, subscribe, comment, share, turn on those notifications. Or if you catch this episode on the audio platforms such as Podbean, Spotify, iTunes, or the others in which we're hosted, same general rule applies. Click like, subscribe, share, and turn on those notifications. I'll be back with a new episode real soon. Till then, be safe out there.